receipts and filing and accounting and receiving and credit card statements and bank statements. I don't know about you, but bookkeeping is not in my zone of genius. And I know that this is something that I totally need to delegate. And today we're talking about why you should delegate this and who to hire. Who do we need to bring on board when we are really looking at delegating this thing that is just not in most of our zone of genius? And I brought the expert on, Rachel LaMantia. Rachel, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit more about you and what you do.
Awesome. Hi, Nicole. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I own Masterpiece Bookkeeping, which is a firm that specializes just in that bookkeeping piece. So it's very unique between, people who try and do it themselves and accounting firms. It kind of fits that, bridges the gap and is in the middle and really specializes in the day-to-day, month-to-month bookkeeping. So if you don't ever want to sign into QuickBooks, you probably don't have to very often.
Well, you know what? That's really good news because it is just not, it's the thing that so many business owners talk about, like, okay, I just got into business to do what I love to do, not to be filing, receipts and trying to figure out what category this goes in or all that kind of stuff. So tell me, what are some of the ways, we talk a lot on the show about how our experts can save our business owners time or money. What are some of those kind of ideas for you?
Sure. Well, time is usually the biggest one, especially in the beginning. Most entrepreneurs, like you said, it's amazing how many things about business ownership we don't know until we actually get into it, right? And accounting is usually one. You've never taken classes, you've never studied it, you're just trying to kind of figure it out as you go, right? Well, something that would take you an entire weekend might take my team 30 minutes to do because we know what we're doing, right? So if you don't want to spend your evenings and weekends like poring over bank statements and looking through receipts, that's a really easy way to save you time so you can focus on your genius, right? In the long run, also, I think it is money too, because it sounds weird that you're paying us to do a service, but we find money for clients all the time. Like this check you forgot to deposit or this discrepancy between your point of sale and what went into your bank account. Just today, I found an error where a client's bank account somehow let somebody cash a check twice. That's like $300 right there. You can go and try and get back. So in the long run, there's also something about knowing your numbers and where you're at that helps you make better decisions about your business too. So even though it costs you money short term, I think in the long run, it's better. You're better off money wise too.
And I agree with that from the perspective that there's definitely something about knowing your numbers and knowing where you stand and being able to, if you've got a goal to make X amount of money this year, how do you know if you're hitting that goal if you're not actually tracking your numbers? And as a procrastination expert, I know that one of the first things that we procrastinate are those things that we can't stand to do. And it's just not in our brain power to be, entering data on a spreadsheet and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas I'm sure that's the kind of thing you just love to do.
Oh yeah, let me just dig into spreadsheets and figure out where the numbers came from, and I can get lost in them. Yeah, it's fun.
Spreadsheets, those lines, more lines, more lines.
Yeah.
So what are some mistakes that you see, maybe like when you're first bringing on a new client and you're looking at their books and you're like, okay, here's some big mistakes that are happening?
Yeah. There's actually a lot of them. And I can say that almost every single new client I have starts with a cleanup project. And that's because accounting isn't as easy as learning a software. There's a giant math equation going on behind the scenes. So everything you do affects at least two different areas of your books. So a lot of times people don't know how to, for example, record loans properly or record payroll properly. There's often sometimes some mixing between personal and business, and how do you properly separate them? or recording bank fees and merchant fees. A lot of people don't separate those out. So you're actually underreporting your income. And, I could keep going on and on and on, because there's all of these little things that, because you don't know it and you haven't studied it, it's not your fault. You just don't know. You don't know what we know, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be as simple as, and I'm not the expert by any means, but I know that there are certain limits, for example, on what we can spend as gifts for our clients. And if we don't know that, we might be losing money, because we might be spending something like $150 on a gift basket at Christmas time when the limit's $50. And so we end up losing that $100 of write-off kind of money. So
yeah, things that, what can you deduct and what is questionable and what should you think about? Or, when you hire somebody, are they walking the line between employee and contractor? Because that's a big deal to the government too. So it's just a lot of those things that we can help, ask questions that maybe you never thought of before.
So that brings us to the next kind of question. When somebody's looking to hire a bookkeeper, what do they need to know? How do they evaluate one bookkeeper versus another, versus maybe a virtual assistant that just happens to be filing, their receipts and that kind of thing?
Sure. So there's kind of two extremes people tend to go to. Besides doing it themselves, is to hire somebody else in-house, like, having their assistant or somebody do it. And I usually don't recommend that for a couple reasons. One, somebody you hire as an assistant probably doesn't have like formal accounting training. So it's just like you doing it, not really knowing the accounting behind the scenes, but having somebody else and somebody on your team knowing your financial data. Pink collar crime is a real thing. So you really want to make sure there's like separation of duties and you have somebody who knows what they're doing. The other extreme is to hire a full-blown accounting firm, the accounting firm who does the audit and the taxes and all of that other stuff. And this isn't across the board. There are some really great accounting firms out there, but most of the time they're offering it because they feel they have to. They love doing, the taxes and the compliance and the planning and the strategy and all of that. But bookkeeping kind of takes a different brain. You really have to want to dig into the data and do it. I've heard so many times, I haven't heard from my accountant in 3 months. It's just not a proactive piece of what they do. So having a firm that really specializes in bookkeeping, I think it kind of bridges the gap between those two extremes. And it's not going to be as expensive as accounting firm either. But when you're looking for that firm, you also want to make sure it's one that they know what they're doing. There's a really big movement right now in people who want to open their own virtual bookkeeping firm. It's an attractive job, but they may not have the background or the knowledge to do so. So you really want to make sure that the firm you're hiring has a good track record. They've studied it. They know what they're doing too, right?
To my knowledge, there's no actual certification to be a bookkeeper. So that's one thing to kind of be cautious of. But I'm sure that there are some training programs and things along those lines that maybe, a more qualified bookkeeper can obtain those trainings.
Exactly. Yeah. There is no certification. It's not like your CPA designation. So you really, and it's hard to hire somebody who's doing something that, you aren't trained in, because how do you know how to ask the right questions, right? So things, to maybe look out for are to have them look at your balance sheet with you and see if they can point out all of the different things on the balance sheet and explain it to you. And if you don't know what a balance sheet is, ask them, see if they can explain what that means to you, because most entrepreneurs just focus on the profit and loss or the income statement and don't know the other side of your books. See if they work with technology, like if they'll integrate technology and work with what you have. A lot of what we do is looking at point of sale systems and tying it back into your deposits. And there's a lot of people out there who just, look at your bank statement and that's your income. They don't actually verify that it matches what's in your system. So those are just a couple things to look out for. Also, security is important. So make sure you're finding somebody who's going to treat your business and your data securely and not share passwords with you and all of that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And I think it's very smart to really kind of evaluate and have some points that you can go and you can talk to different people and say, here's this, here's this, here's this, and how do you compare on each of these? So that's great news. It's great information, great place for us to start. But I have a question for you. What is something that you delegate?
What I delegate? So one of the first things I started delegating in my business was my cards and gifting. So I believe in making a really great client experience and having those different touch points. Like I want to send them a card when they hit one of their goals that they've told me in milestones, or, it's their business anniversary and things like that. But I dreaded sitting down at the end of the month and taking a stack of cards and writing it all out and stuffing it and mailing it. So I found a great service that does that for me. All I have to do is shoot out a message and they take care of it and do beautiful handmade cards and send it all for me. So that's been awesome.
Yeah, that's really important, and it's so important. In fact, we had a guest on a recent episode, and she talked all about that relationship nurturing and how you can, delegate some of that.
Yeah. Highly recommend it.
For sure. Rachel, tell us, if we're interested in looking into your bookkeeping services, how do we reach out and connect with you?
Sure. The easiest way is probably just to go to my website. It's masterpiecebookkeeping.com. And I have a contact page there. So if you fill that out and send me an inquiry, it goes right into my inbox. So I'll get back to you within a day or two. We can chat and see if I can help.
Perfect. I think that's awesome. And for those of you that are interested in learning more about how you can delegate and become a better delegator, make sure you checked out our virtualateam.com/delegate for the ultimate guide to delegating. And stay tuned for the next episode coming up here. And in fact, I think we've got one on relationship nurturing. Thanks so much. Make it an amazing day.